All right, so we're in the Field of Dreams food plot here. This is the plot that I had corn screening off both sides of the beans, and then corn kind of in front of the deer stand. Looks like we got quite a bit of soybeans left, and I know for sure there's some corn in here yet. This really short corn, see how this corn is shorter than that stuff? This was the original planted silage corn, but then this half I planted field corn, but that side all got pulled out by cranes when it was just poking through the ground. This is all broadcasted corn, like in mid to late June. It was really late planted, and since it was so late, it didn't dry down as quick as that stuff, and it was kind of doughy yet in like October. And the coons just destroyed a lot of it. But here up front, there's some of it standing here, and it got super thick. But we'll show you the beans, and we'll show you the corn here, and then we'll move on to some of the other plots. See, this is like a little switchgrass bedding strip I have up here. There's a lot of nighttime bedding, but this year, in all of our plots, we have definitely more food this year, but last year on February 10th, 4 days from now, this whole field was just completely leveled, and it was all pretty much beans last year. All that half, like from here over, was pretty much all gone 4 days from now. Last year's winter was definitely, it was just as cold, but we had a heck of a lot more snow. So it looks like we're probably gonna end up with some leftover food. Unless, I mean, we do have like literally a whole month of February left, you know, for the deer to eat up these beans. I'd hate to have all these beans standing here in the spring, but we still have quite a few, as you can see. That side over there, it gets thinner. I mean, just look at all these pods. It's a shame if this all goes to waste. Right up here is where it starts to get thin, because they're coming from this direction. See, those are all picked clean, and then boom, bunch of pods. Not a whole lot of deer sign in here either. I mean, there's deer sign, but not like what it was last year. And you can see we still got plenty of corn in here. I wouldn't say plenty, but this corn's probably about half gone. There's just as much, if not more, deer sign here in the corn, fresh tracks. We got snow, not last night, but 2 nights ago, like about a 1-inch dusting. But there still is a good amount of corn in here, but they are getting at some of it too. And here's that broadcasted corn. You can see a lot of it is torn down by the coons. And that was all torn down by the coons. See how thin that corn is in that corner? The coons got all that. But for being planted in late June, some of this stuff grew pretty darn good. So, see, these beans are all pretty full, and they're pretty thin up here again in this direction. So these deer are really gonna have to get hungry here in February if they're gonna finish off all this food. So I'll be able to pick the corn in the spring, but I won't be able to do anything with these soybeans except mow them down and till them in, but it's gonna suck if I have to do that. I'll take you over to the other big food plot just that way a little bit here in just a second. This corn right up here in front here is pretty much gone. For some reason, they just hit this stuff harder than that stuff in the middle, probably because it was more open here. They could kind of walk through here a little bit better. So it does seem like there's definitely more tracks in the corn here and in the corn up there than what there is in the soybeans. The soybeans just have trails through the beans going to that switchgrass bedding and kind of just cutting through, and a little bit of browsing, but it does seem like all these I mean, this is all fresh tracks from the last 2 nights, because like I said, we got an inch or 2 of snow. A lot of it's already melted off though. But yeah, I'll take you over to the next bigger food plot in just a second. All right, so this right here, this is our big 2-acre food plot. We got roughly 1.2 acres of corn here, and about exactly 1 acre of beans way up there on the other side of the corn. This is probably the core food source of the property. The other one we were just at was right on 1 acre, mainly all beans, but it looks like there's definitely more deer hitting this food plot right now. The trails coming in and out of here are crazily, like, just packed down, and tons of fresh tracks. And like I was saying in that food plot, it looked like there was more sign on the corn over there, and this field's got an acre of corn. So this stuff right here, this thinner corn, is all the recycled field corn. Like 1 or 2 years ago, we had a little bit extra corn in the spring, and I picked a couple bags of it, shelled it out, and I ran it through the planter a couple years now, and it grows just as good as the seed corn. But the only thing is, the kernels are bigger than seed corn kernels, so it kind of puts big gaps in between the plants. Like, it doesn't run through the planter as thick as it should. So that's why whenever I do this, I usually always double plant it. You can see I got 3 rows here, boom, boom, boom. 4th row here. So I got these rows like 15, 20 inches, double planting with the 38-inch row planter, because the spacing in between the plants is pretty far, further than it should. And then right here, see how thick this corn is? This is the seed silage corn we bought this year. Look at how thick and dense that is. There's way more cobs of corn in there, way higher yielding. And I did double plant a lot of this too, so it's probably planted a little thicker than it should be. Here's a 38-inch row, and just look at how dense that stuff is. This huge area in here I mowed down, because a lot of it, this silage corn, it doesn't dry down as fast. It's like 110-day maturing corn. So in October, November, this stuff was kind of doughy yet, and just like the other field, the coons came in and they just mowed down a lot of this center section. So I just mowed it up anyway so the deer could walk through better, and just put some cobs on the ground. But some of it's still standing. The coons didn't get all the silage corn. This stuff is just way taller. It's probably like, this summer, I mean, it's probably like 12, 13 foot tall corn. This is the same stuff I have planted in our backyard on the last food plot update. I don't think this stuff the ears aren't quite as high, but they're all about, 5.5, almost 5 foot high off the ground yet. And then right here in the field corn areas, the ears are right about waist high. And I gotta mention, I hardly used any fertilizer in this field. I think I threw like 3 bags in here when I was planting, and I threw a little bit of, like, maybe 3 bags of nitrogen, the urea, on when it was maybe like shin high, the corn. So like 6 bags total. So it's not too much nitrogen, and it really produced a good corn crop. This is pretty wet ground here, like really dark soil, really high organic matter. So it had plenty of moisture all throughout the summer. Never once did this stuff dry up. For as dry of a year as what it was, it's just that low of ground. On a wetter year, it would be kind of a challenge to plant this stuff without it flooding out if we got a big rainstorm. That's how wet this ground is here. But as you can tell, there's a lot of corn left. Too much corn. We're gonna have corn left over. There's no way this is all gonna get eaten up. But you can see there is some gone in here. And especially on this side where they're coming from. Definitely some gone. But in all reality, we have way more food than we need this year, which isn't really a bad thing, but it's not really a good thing. It's just gonna be kind of suck to have to pick all this by hand or just mow it up in the spring. And this is like some beans I had on the edge here. These were gone a long time ago. But this side definitely has some gone, but in this whole field, we probably have, honestly, like 75% left. So you can see right here, this is a really good comparison of the height. Here's the silage corn on this side, and this side is the recycled field corn. This stuff is definitely thinner, like I said, but for as thick as what this stuff is planted, we'll show you the ears in a second. This silage corn actually grew bigger ears on some of the rows. Some of the rows that are a little bit smaller, like inside there, but a lot of it is just as big as this field corn ears. But this silage corn, I'm really impressed with how thick it can grow and how good it grows. All right, so I'll just pick off a pretty good sized one right here. So that's your field corn. And then, you know, there's obviously some smaller ones in here too. So set those down. And then I'll pick off a big silage corn one. Look at the size difference. It's thicker, rounder, and about the same length. I'll pick off a small silage corn one now, or smaller. Okay. So, field corn and silage corn. And you gotta take a note, like I said, look at how open this is. The population on this field corn is way lower, and look at how thick this is. The plant population on here is way higher, and it grew just as good. Same nutrients, same soil. You can see right here, look at how many plants I have in this row. All the rows are like that. And look at these cobs. I mean, they're literally touching each other. It's so thick. And then you come over here and look at how open this is. All these rows. And they're actually smaller over here. That one's all moldy. So it's just, that stuff grows amazing. So this right here is the 1 acre bean field right next to the 1 acre corn. We're like just right on the other side of it. There's a lot of beans in here yet, just like the other field, so we might have a lot of beans left over here too. Right there's the Brassicas. You can see there's a ton of tracks over there. Those are actually all tore up. We'll show you those in just a second. But this is the side of the beans that everything's coming from, so they're a little bit thinner here. And out there by those cedars, there's still quite a bit. There's a good amount of sign in here. I know a lot of tracks have melted off here in the last week, but these are all fresh tracks from the last 2 nights. And they're walking around in these beans just as much as the corn. There's definitely more tracks in these beans than there was in the other beans in the other food plot. I think everything is kind of shifted over to these food plots because there's just more food here. But you get in here and there's a lot of beans left. But they'll probably finish off. I'm hoping at least half this field, but I mean, if we keep getting some cold and maybe another snowstorm or two, they could finish off a lot of this and a lot of that, but it doesn't look like it as of this point right now. Some heavy trails going down in the corn here. The beans grew better down here. It's a little bit wet. This field's a little drier, a lot drier than that field. And down here is a little bit of that darker ground. So these beans were kind of drying up throughout the summer, on and off when we get dry stretches. But these beans down here did the best because it's a little bit lower. You can see they're a little bit taller, more pods than the beans like way up there. They're pretty small. So right here's the Brassicas. They've been munching on them throughout the winter here, but these Brassicas didn't get super big this year. You can see they're not super tall, but a lot of the leaves are gone. Some of the stuff is kind of still here. Here's a big turnip bulb. Some of them they've been eating on like this. With the less snow we've had this year, I've definitely noticed a little bit more tracks and browse and digging around out here in the Brassicas this year compared to last year when we had like over a foot of snow for over a month. There was like no tracks in the Brassicas, and they were really hitting the beans and corn a lot harder last year. And look at that one. But it doesn't look like they're eating on them too much anymore. They're starting to starting to rot a little bit now. This one looks a little better. But yeah, they munched a lot of this stuff pretty good, pretty right down to the ground. You can see my winter rye, all these green shoots coming back to life. Once all the snow melts off, this whole field will be green with rye. So yeah. So I just kind of realized, like, maybe another reason why this winter being a lot easier, you know, less snowfall. Like this time of the year last year, we would have had easily like a whole foot deep, or, you know, 14, 16 inches of snow. It was some deep snow out here, and it was just like pathways through the snow like crazy out here. That's probably another reason why, like, once the deer really started hitting the food, they were able to clean it up completely. And the snow, like what we have right now on the ground, is not much. This is going to be gone middle of the week or end of the week, because it's supposed to be all 30s and no snow chances at all this week. And it was literally like March 10th when it looked like this last year, and it's like February 7th today, so we're like a whole month ahead of schedule. And that's probably the reason why there's not nearly as many deer like on the winter food sources like crazy this year. But we still have a whole month of February. They will be, you know, it's still going to be 30s, 20s here and there, so they're still going to be hitting these food plots, but not like what they did last year when the deep snow was around.